Hello, 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 hello. Make sure that that's working okay. Let me know if you can hear me quickly in the chat, just because I haven't done a stream in a while, actually. Let me just double check. Can you hear me? Yes, nice one, Ivan. Ivan in the chat, excited for the stream as always, my guy. Warrior saying, "What's good?" I'm assuming that is. What's good, Con? What's good? You are audible. Very, very nice. Gonna have to bear with me today a little bit because I am feeling a little bit under the weather. That's why I haven't been uploading as much this week or the weekend last week, going into this week. And I thought I'd just try and boot up a stream. Hi, we can hear you from Abdullah. Well, I don't know why that one's gone to the top. I think it's because it's through X. But yeah, gonna have to bear with me today. But I thought we'd boot up the stream, do a little sort of half an hour thing to speak about this game, because tomorrow I do also have basically a video coming out about, well, it should be out tomorrow anyway, as long as I can get it done in time. I've been very, very busy with a lot of sort of outsourced work, a lot of analysis work I've been doing lately. Very, very busy. So the idea today, we'll just talk about the game from last night. A few things to talk about. As always, just get any questions into the chat. Dropping a like would be very, very helpful. Like I said, I've been extremely, extremely busy. So every single like to help support everything that we're doing here is much appreciated. So now that's all out of the way, get your questions in the chat and we will get talking about this game. So Stefan says, best content creator back at it, my guy. Thank you, Stefan. So we saw Jorgensen in goal from the start. Much of the rest of this, everything else is really quite similar. I mean, tossing in for Chalobah at the right centre back. So let's put it into how it looked on the ball, and we'll discuss why, to begin with, we sort of went for this. So Enzo was actually on this right side, so I instantly got it wrong there because I had it like that. But Enzo was sort of stretching into here, and the diamond was actually a very sort of stretched diamond, is I think what some people may have realised from the beginning. So what we basically saw was this shape, okay? Quite similar to what we've seen. We in here, what's up, Ryan? So again, you can call this part sort of a 3-1, the three centre backs, one with Casado. Now, if we let's just put red dots on. They're going to be red, but this is West Ham, okay? We'll spread their back five. Probably should have done this bit before I started the stream, to be fair, because now I'm faffing around putting 11 dots onto a screen. But hey ho, got two in the middle. Then we got the three forwards. So we'll just go 1, 2, 3. So what lots of teams have done against us is, oh, hang on, what's this? Currently reading Inverting the Pyramid. Have you read? Yes, I have read Inverting the Pyramid. Good book. Good one to read. I'd say things like Inverting the Pyramid, very good. Then you've got How to Win the Premier League, very good. It's another one that I've read really recently. Intensity, Pep Linders, a lot of good tactics books if you want to sort of get into the mind frame of how other people sort of the lenses that they look at football within. They're very good. But yeah, Inverting the Pyramid is a good book. Need to get rid of Jackson, Noni, and Sanchez. I don't agree with those. I don't agree with getting rid of them all. Give more game times to Gu. I agree with now. And we're going to discuss why with Gu. But let's just quickly talk about the pattern that we saw in terms of possession and why we sort of saw this build-up phase. And essentially, we know these wingers are going to play it high and wide to pin the fullbacks. We know that's going to be what works. And to be fair, as much as it looked quite slow and lethargic in the first half, I don't think this is an issue. I think starting games like this makes a lot of sense because it keeps these players almost locked on the outside of the game. They will get 1v1 opportunities. I don't think Madueke made anywhere near enough bursts toward the byline yesterday. I think everything was way too inside. He was coming in too often inside on his left foot. He missed quite a good chance on his left foot cutting in. Sancho also got a good chance in that first half on his cutting inside on his right foot. So the chances came, and it's not an issue, okay? But we're going to discuss why the change that Cucurella had in the second half did actually help. And of course it did, but there's reasons as to why. So this front three, let's say, so Bowen here, basically screening with Casado. Then you got Kudus and who was the other one? Can't even remember. Soler was the other one as left wing. So their role is essentially to, if the ball goes into one of these players, they press. Basically, Bowen just stays in here and screens. Sometimes he might try and look to press round onto Tosin, but not very often. Tosin's often the free man in this space. If they go to press the fullback, obviously this will like the wide centre back. This man becomes free. So what we often saw was Kudus was actually the one sort of being more aggressive on Colwill. Soler was very often not actually going out to James. He was just sort of staying here and looking to basically just play on Enzo and just stop Enzo getting the ball, whether he was in here or if he tucked in a little bit, Soler would tuck in a little bit. James had a lot of this space. I don't think he utilised it well enough in the first half. I think he got into these positions to put some crosses in sometimes, but again, we wasn't as effective as we could be from those. So yeah, often it was Kukurea who would be sort of the spare man because Kudus would go out to press and it would sort of look like a 2, if you want these two to be a 2, and then a 3, basically, with, say, this guy on Parma. This guy would then almost play between the two, and again, the wide centre-back can also jump out there. So you almost have a 2-3, a 5-3-2, but it is a 5-4-1 converting into a 5-3-2, if that makes sense. Let's get rid of all that. So Kukurea, often in this half, found the space in here, and we just weren't quick enough to utilise it. We weren't getting into... Kukurea wasn't sort of turning and driving into that space. He was often receiving it as the spare man, but then looking to come back inside to one of our more sort of ball-dominant players. You're trying to get the ball to Palmer, you're trying to get the ball to Enzo. And when you're forcing that to happen, of course, you're not going to get as progressive as you want, which is why a lot of our play sort of came down this side, and a lot of the crosses came from this side towards the end of the half, and as the game went on, because Kukurea was more effective attacking the box than actually trying to attack this space here. So we saw a lot of that throughout the game, or throughout the first half at least. Something else to touch on is when you're playing in this shape, and it's a lot, I see quite a misconception I see about this really, is the idea that Palmer shouldn't be the one dropping deep. And I think what a lot of people fail to realise is Enzo and Kukurea, they're in these spots to drag players out and to create space in the middle. Because you already know you can get space out wide. We can access these wide areas. You've seen that. We can get 1v1s, 2v2s. Accessing wide areas against a low block isn't very often, what's the word? It's very rarely an issue to access wide areas against a low block. What is harder is, again, to access that central space. But if Casado is dragging Bowen away, as he's sort of trying to cover, like we're speaking about, one of these guys jumps, Kukurea comes into space, this guy then has to sort of a little bit more aggressive, and one player's on Palmer here. As you can see, with that sort of pentagon shape in the middle, Palmer's best bet is to drop into here, receive the ball, and then be able to manipulate it himself, because he can then get on the turn. These players are then stuck, essentially, because you've now got, if these players have pushed up a little bit, and Palmer's picking up the ball here, let me just take all that away. You've now got a 3v2 there. And Palmer's the one on the ball. These two are both going to be attracted towards the ball because they're stuck. They don't know whether to go with Kukurea. This guy doesn't know whether he has to stay with Kukurea as the runner or cut off Palmer's run. And the same thing here. It's split-second decisions. And that allows Palmer to sort of manipulate those two positions and find one of these two in one of these advanced areas without their marker. And often in the first half, that is actually how we found ourselves in good positions. Palmer sort of dropping in, almost manipulating the ball a little bit in here. Sometimes he'd put it straight out to Madueke. Sometimes he'd try and he found a little one into Jackson, who would then try and put it off to Enzo. And there was really small signs, but they just weren't coming off quite. So I don't mind that against back fives. He did it a lot against Palace, and I do genuinely think there's effectiveness to be had there, because you're trying to get your best playmaker on the ball, your player to drop into the space, and who do you trust that's going to be able to sort of fizz one into here as Kukurea is arriving here, who's got that little bit extra quality, and that is Palmer, right? So I completely get it. One thing I would say that I think would have been sort of a nice little tweak to see, and there is probably reasons why he's not doing this, so fair enough. And again, like I say, it's probably because Palmer is your best player on the ball. Could you have swapped these two over at one point? Play Enzo basically as that 3-10 and Palmer towards that right side, purely because it would then create that same sort of thing. But Enzo can be the one to drop into here, and he can be the one spraying passes. But the difference is with that, and I guess the what you're trading off there is these players are probably going to be more worried about Palmer to the point where this player isn't actually going to be as confused in that moment as they would if this was Palmer, because they're worried. Right, where's Cole Palmer? We're going to mark him. So what that would then open up is maybe a little bit more access into here through Jackson by doing that with Enzo. But it also might then make it harder to progress down this right hand side because you might end up with a lot of 3v2s because of Palmer's gravity. So it's give or take. Okay, and that at the end of the day, that is football tactics. It's what can we do in the moment to change things, and that's why I think this game has gone so under the radar for Maresca. Let me just quickly read a few of these. It's also pretty insignificant most of the time. Big up Bimo. What's pretty insignificant? Bimo. Do you think Palmer would be more effective on the right, playing Kunku in the middle? I don't like the idea of Palmer on the right wing. No. But because I think Palmer's just too good to be locked to one side of the pitch. I think that's why I like him in here, even against Diamond, because he can drop into here. He can float over to here, which is where his goal came from, by the way. So a lot of people that sort of don't like Palmer being on that left half space, that's where his goal came from. And that's where the winner came from. Him creating a bit of space in this zone. So that's just got to be taken into account, really. But notice that we basically had this 3-3-4 where Enzo and Palmer were kind of free roaming in that second line of three. Yeah, Kukurea was pushing onto that back line a lot of the time, like you say, to force this defender to not be able to jump as well, so that then you can basically have these two sort of interchanging in there. But it does allow it to go man for man a little bit easier when it does that. So you have to time it right as to when Kukurea can sort of drop into here to cause that a bit of chaos where this guy doesn't know whether to stay or go, this guy doesn't know whether to jump out of. Because I think something we don't do enough with our wingers. Madueke tried it a few times when this player looked to jump out to Enzo. We don't spin into here enough. I think that, especially when you're playing with 5 on the last line, I think when you can drag one of these players out, so say this player jumps slightly, that should be, and Jackson does it fairly well. He did it a few times in the first half, but his touch just wasn't at it on the day, and we was affected by that. But as well, these wingers, we've got to notice that space a little bit quicker and be a little bit more proactive into it. And I think Madueke does look to make those runs, but he doesn't get picked out often, and then his head drops, and he doesn't continue to do it. I think he just needs to sort of be drilled to be a little bit more consistent and almost just persistent with making those runs. Being able to get the ball out wide versus a low block. Yeah, I get what you mean in terms of insignificant, but again, if you can't go low blocks, I think Carragher said it on Monday Night Football last night, and it is literally the only way to look at it. Against a low block, you can either go through or round. You got to find a way, and if you can't get through, which is what we couldn't do, and we've not been able to do on some occasions. Some occasions we have. Against Brentford, I think we went through the lines fairly well on occasion, but they dropped off so deep that we ended up using the width really nicely. But what was I saying? I think that you have to be able to use your width, and that's where Jackson doesn't help us as much in a low block because he's sort of attracted to the ball and he wants to sort of play in these little combinations. And something we saw something very different from Guiu when he came on, which we are going to speak about. Palmer needs to play as a false 9 and Kunku can then play as a 10. Again, though, against low blocks, it's just there's too many players that want the ball to feet and not enough players that want to make runs in behind. So against low blocks, if you did that, you would just be stuck in terms of just like your only real mechanism to scoring would be long shots. Palmer and Kunku like Palmer as a false 9. That's the biggest issue. Coleman tossing the central centre backs. I think that's their best roles. Yeah. Why is Kuku the main box target when we're hammering so many crosses in the box? I think it's just the fact that he's tenacious to go and win it. I don't think he's like supposed to be the main box target, but again, and this is all about profiles. It's like, look at this line here. look at all of those players. There's not one significant box threat in terms of attacking the ball firstly. Now, the difference is when let's talk about Gear, because I think he changed the game. I really do. I spoke about it on Twitter. Not sure if you saw it, but I don't think he had a significant game. I don't think he did anything outrageously crazy. But let's do all three of these subs. Okay. So that's essentially what we saw. Chalobah did come on at the end as well, but we're going to leave him there. This is essentially the landscape of what happened. Okay. And Nkunku came into this pocket. Kukurea is now pinning the fullback. EU is come on. Now, I'll come to the questions in a minute. Why did this change the game so much? One, and I think this is really important because I think it's something that you should always think about in every game. It's not always about the tactical tweak being so sort of genius as to, that is the exact thing that needed to be done. Sometimes it is just the fact that you're changing something. You're making them think. And the difference here is what they'd been doing all game is you'd had Wan-Bissaka on Sancho, and Sancho had been his man, and he'd been 1v1 at this byline. Kufau here had been on Kukurea. He'd learned sort of when he'd sort of, as the game went on, he'd become more comfortable and when to jump onto Kukurea and when not to, because he knew what threat he was holding. So the sheer fact of just switching things around, all of a sudden now Wan-Bissaka, he's just getting pinned out here by Kukurea, and Kukurea is essentially, he knows the ball's not really going to come to him. The ball's not going to come and find that wide access without Nkunku close to sort of like combine with. Kukurea is not going to be tasked with being left 1v1 with this man, because that's not what he's about. And Wan-Bissaka he does know that. But it's taken him out of the game. And now, what Guiu did really well is, again, he would pin himself on this side of the pitch, especially when the ball sort of was opposite or coming into here to sort of play through the lines. Because what this does, Guiu is now between these two defenders. He's on Enzo, he's got Palmer. This player's technically got Nkunku, but again, he's trying to sort of keep his role to stay close to Palmer, but also be ready if Casado beats his man and he has to apply pressure on the ball. So these defenders that have hybrid roles, it allowed Nkunku to be the spare man, like we said earlier about Kukurea. But the difference is the threat that Nkunku brings now is far different to what Kukurea was bringing in this hole. So you've lost wide threat, but you've gained pocket threat. And from this, it just starts to change the game, because we're still finding areas to make crosses, and Guiu is now attacking. If we sort of show this area, there was a cross that I really liked from Guiu, not from Guiu, but for Guiu. It was the Neto cross for the Neto goal. So he crosses it in, and I think it's Enzo's here at this point. I can't remember exactly where everybody was, so you're gonna have to sort of bear with the idea. But the point is, we're obviously pushed up, so I'll just sort of move it around like this. Gusto is closer to here, and what it does is the cross. Gusto's sort of advanced positioning here means that it's harder for this player to overcommit to stopping Neto going down the line, because if he does that, look how much space Gusto has to arrive and attack. So you can't overcommit on one or the other. So he has to stay relatively in position there. Enzo can then push over a little bit. He can go 1-for-1 here, which means Guiu playing in between here is what he actually did. Is this man is still slightly wary of Enzo, but he knows Guiu's there. This man is basically, that is my man. Guiu is my man, so I'm going to stay here. And because he's looking at the back of his shirt. If you go look at what I put on Twitter, Guiu is positioning. It's not here. It's not sort of aimless where this player and this player can easily mark him, and that allows this player to sort of be on Kukurea. What he does so well, and this is what Haaland does better than most players in the world, places himself perfectly in the back line, where he's got eyes on the back of this defender's shirt, but he's just enough of a threat that this player can't fully commit and just go 1-for-1 and be an absolute nuisance on Kukurea. Which then means that when that ball comes in, these two players are really tight to Guiu because of his positioning and, like I say, where he sort of how he's conducted himself in that moment. Which then allows Kukurea to basically arrive here, not unopposed, but again, it's those split-second moments. And it also allows Nkunku to arrive in the box. If you actually watch that goal back, where it drops to Enzo, Nkunku's also free. They've all dropped off because of the threat of you attacking the ball and Kukurea arriving behind it, to the point that both of these players are now free on the edge. And again, it's by that point, it's a scramble. These players are trying to get in to block it. These players are trying to get in to block it. And Neto arrives for the goal. So it's chaos, but it's controlled chaos. And I think that is the difference that Guiu gave the second he came on, is that ability to help control the chaos with just smart positioning. Because like I said, I don't think he did anything majorly like unbelievable in the game. I just think his dynamics, he offered something that Jackson doesn't do very naturally, and that's attack the box with a purpose and an idea of where he's got to be on the pitch to not only affect his position, but to affect other defenders' positions. And it is really as simple as that. Let's go to a few questions. So if you've got any questions, drop them in the chat. If there's any particular parts of the game that you thought were really interesting. But like I said, I think it was really to do with, I'm reading all of the subs really, but Nkunku, again, didn't have a great game. Nothing special. But again, it's just the shift of dynamics to make the game different and to spark a little bit of different chaos into the game. I think Enzo was really good. Gusto was good when he came on. I think these three changes were really important. Or Neto, of course. I think all four of the changes really, really sparked the game, and that's where you got to give Maresca the credit. By the way, we've got nearly 300 people watching, so if you could all drop a like on the video or on the stream, that would be really helpful, because like I say, haven't been feeling great, but we've jumped on to do a stream anyway, because I thought we'd try and sort of speak about the game from last night, because I'll have a video out tomorrow, but I didn't have the time to do a video purely on the game. We've got the video that's coming out tomorrow is basically talking about what's going wrong at Chelsea in the run over the festive period and fixes for each one. So there's 3 or 4 bits in the video. I think it's a really interesting video. I think it sort of really helps to dive into the ideas, why we're failing in certain aspects, but why it's not completely our fault. But then obviously on some occasions sometimes it's to do with profile, sometimes it's to do with the wrong tactical decision, sometimes it's to do with players having poor performances. Like, it's a very big culmination of a lot of different things, and I think the video hopefully will put into perspective. Yeah, let's go through because I haven't gone over these ones. Guiu has that positional discipline where he's a bit more willing to stay between the centre backs and just do channel runs, even if he's not getting picked out. Yeah, 100%. Much prefer Net on that right side. Yeah, agreed. In the meantime, give Tyreek more minutes, and you've said he needs a minimum of 2 loans, and I do agree he needs loans, but for the rest of the season he has to get minutes. And again, I've put him early here to discuss him in this because I thought he might come up in this. And part of the reason, let's just go back to this and imagine George instead of Sancho, is if you've watched my other videos when we spoke about Garnacho, we spoke about Tel, something that George does really well is he's very two-way. What I mean by that is he will switch things up. Like I said with Madueke in that first half, I don't think he used the outside anywhere near enough. And he has actually been sort of varying his actions a lot lately. But I think towards the end of the half, they knew Madueke was coming inside so often that they weren't even threatened by this, to the point where I think if Madueke had just tried it, I think it could have caused something. What I like about George and what I think we could see quite a bit from him, because I think he's going to get Conference League minutes now. I think we might even see him sort of cut minutes. Hopefully he starts against Brighton on Saturday. I just want to see him be really, really direct with his actions. I want to see him cutting into this zone, and I want to see him let him fly, because he got it in his locker. He really does. And it's just those moments of chaos that he'll cause would then allow him to then also beat his man on the outside and put balls into the box. And if it's Guiu attacking them, like we've said, he's got a nous for it, whilst he might not be brilliant at it. It's more to do with what he's going to cause behind him. Again, he might not be the one scoring the goals, but just from him being a nuisance in here, it should hopefully make it easier for these guys and even the wingers arriving at the back post. So that's the aim. But I do think Tyreek's going to have a big part to play from the bench, from cup games, however it be. Fair play to Potter. Didn't expect to see West Ham this structured so soon. I've got 2 Potter videos on my channel. One is speaking about transfers, but it speaks about exactly how they pretty much played against us yesterday. I've watched a lot about them, so I've been doing a lot of work about Potter since he joined West Ham. So go watch that if you're interested, because they're both very good videos. Also, going to use this moment to plug it. I did a video talking about the new tactical trend in the Premier League, and it's the latest video on my channel. After this stream, or now, or whenever, if you could go drop a like on that video and give it a watch. It's about 10 minutes, but genuinely, I think it's really important. I think by watching that video, you'll understand the trend that we're about to see a little bit more, and I think it's already happening, and I think it's going to happen even more with the likes of Matthias Tell joining Tottenham. I think it's very much linked with the idea as to why Arsenal wanted Watkins. So yeah, I would really go and watch that video if I were you, because I think we're going to see a lot to do with it, and I think it's really important because I think Chelsea might even try to eventually go down that route, but again, we don't quite have the profiles currently to go between the two. Random question, but I know you're into basketball. What do you think? Yeah, honestly, I'm a big Luka fan. I've got quite a few Mavs jerseys with Luka on it. Yeah, I don't know about craziest in sports history, because you've got like Figo going like playing for Barca and Madrid, but it's right up there in terms of just it literally was plucked out of nowhere, wasn't it? Like, yeah, mad question, mad move, really really crazy. And it seemed like with all like the missed calls and things, Luka didn't know too much about it. Really crazy, really crazy. Do you think the future of our left side looks like the idea of having a width holding left back so the winger comes inside? I think you need to be able to do both. And I think that's what's so good about Kukurea, is he's a good tactical platformer because he can do everything. He can play in the deep pivot, he can play in the pocket, he can play as a width provider. He's not the best width provider, but he can do these roles. But yeah, I think if you're going to add another left back, you probably want to add one that's maybe a little bit more of a physical athlete who is better at overlapping. Dorgu would have been perfect, but hey ho. And yeah, Cole left centre back's another issue, because I do prefer him as that left back. So it's tough. I do think that it's all about being able to go between a lot of different things at the minute, like I said a minute ago, and I discussed it in the video that I just spoke about. But I think the new meta is making a transformer of a team that can go between different things during different game states. So having multi-purpose tools like Kukurea is really important to be able to do that, especially at fullback. And fullbacks have just become the ultimate tactical platformers. They really have. Last season, Palm was much as effective at right wing against the big six. This season, he goes missing. Yeah, like I say, I don't think he'd work very well as a right wing in this system. I think there's moments that it could work in terms of, like we did yesterday, of having Gusto overlap. I wouldn't be starting Palmer on the right. If we'd have put him on the right yesterday in the second half, in the same way that we did with Nkunku in the second half, then I would have understood it. I wouldn't be starting games in that way, though. I don't think it's sustainable from the get-go. I think it gives up more control. I think out of possession, it would hurt us a little bit. And I also just think you're not getting enough from Palmer, because he'd still be tasked to sort of sit high and wide in that first phase, so he just wouldn't be involved in the build-up, like in the first phase build-up back here. And I think he's too valuable of an asset to not have dropping into pockets and releasing players through the lines. Because, I mean, you saw the goal against what? Who was it? Newcastle? Is it Newcastle where he dropped in, put it around the corner for Neto, and then Neto squared it to Jackson? Was that Newcastle? I think it was. You want to see more of Nkunku? We definitely will. And this is the thing, right, Money Mike? Don't think Nkunku's Prem ready. I don't think he's Prem ready either. And you can see his fundamentals, like you said. But at this point, we have no other choice. If we'd assigned another striker in the window, then we would have had another choice, but we don't. So at this point, he has to be used now. He has to be utilised as to what he is. And what he is more of a box striker than Jackson. So you need to at least use him off the bench to create those moments. Warrior said he's already liked, to make sure everybody else has as well. Biggest worry for the rest of the season. Gonna leave that for tomorrow's video. Leave you waiting, leave it on the edge, because I've got, like I said, I've got a video which is basically discussing like my 4 biggest worries. So I'm not gonna sell out and give it now. I'm gonna make you wait. Make you wait till tomorrow. Gusto and Neto combined really well. They did, yeah. Gee, potential is crazy. He's 18, 100% has potential. Maresca needs to play an overlapping fullback instead of underlaps, helps our wingers much more. Like I said, I think it's moment dependent, and I'm glad that he did use it yesterday, because in that moment it was needed. So agreed, but I also think a lot of people are sort of lost on the idea that it's better from the start and that we should just be playing it all the time. I think if we played it all the time, a similar thing would happen. We'd just become very stuck. Teams would start to just pin us inside rather than outside. They'd force us wide even more, and then we'd have literally no way of beating the man. Like, they would just leave this 1v1, and they'd be able to leave it 1v1 because Gusto and Cucurella, they're not going to put it out their feet and beat their man with a skill or with a little bit of dribbling or a little bit of like little injection of pace. They're just not going to do it. So it's all sort of game dependent. NBA is crazy. They could trade you to yeah, literally. Like, can't do much, can you? Clips his Figo because willingly trading a generational talent. Yeah, it's crazy. It is nuts. It is really nuts. Yeah. And yeah, 100%. If we get a real box presence, it unlocks everybody else. That's the whole point of it. Me asking for a box presence striker. And I really got this watching Delap the other day. I went to the Ipswich Southampton game. I was watching Delap. It's just the chaos that he can provide by just using his body to just not, like, just bump into people and just use that to initiate contact. It's not even just about him scoring the goals. He will just make it easier for these arriving players because he'll take multiple players away with him. Sort of like we said with Guy. Arsenal game made me much more upset at the City game. So from day one, Robert Sanchez would be the player that cost us. Yeah, he's been poor, isn't he? He has been poor. Felt we've lost all of our transition danger. Jackson, when he's in form, he does help us in transition. But then you say that, but he had that moment here where he sort of put it out to Madueke, who ran through. That was a transition moment in terms of we turned the ball over really quickly. Jackson found that little sort of outside the boot pass to Madueke, and then Madueke had a close chance. If we score that, we're 1-0 up. So I definitely agree in terms of when Jackson's not on it, you lose quite a lot in transition, but you still have moments. Palmer running beyond Jackson's been a meta, but Jackson needs to always have 2 on the field. Yeah. But I think that's where the wingers have to sort of be a little bit more proactive as well. I think Maresca is too scared against big teams. Arteta destroyed something. Arteta destroyed City because they didn't destroy us. Something we could have also done as our squad is as good as theirs. Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think trust, and that's something built over time. And I understand it. I think we should have gone for the throat when we were 1-0 up. But you have to try to understand why we didn't. And whilst I think the right decision was to go for it, you can understand why, with a few of the other sort of hiccups that we've had in the last month, why he maybe decided not to. And that's not just on Maresca either. The players, I think it's about their mentality too. City game is the only game Maresca set us up wrong. Yeah, like I said, I don't think even then, I don't think we were set up from the get-go wrong, but I think he didn't sort of react. Like I said, there was a moment where you could have reacted and he didn't. So I agree with that to an extent. I think we're going to leave it there. How many likes are we at? 21. How many people we got? Got nearly 400, well, 350 odd people. So if everybody on the way out could drop a like, we could get that to 50 on the way out. That would be absolutely huge. Like I said, video out tomorrow. Make sure you check that out because that is going to be speaking about all the issues going on at Chelsea in terms of tactics and playing personnel. So that should be a really, really interesting one. Please do make sure you go and watch that. Leave a like on it. And like I said as well, the other video on the channel from the other day, the new tactical trend hitting the Premier League. I think that's a really good one. So if you guys go watch that too, drop a like. That'd be great. I will see you guys in the next video stream. wherever I see you. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you guys later.